Okay, what I'm going to talk about today is a very interesting legal topic, which I think is very interesting, and it seems to reappear every few months or every few years, and that's what to do with our dear friend Anton Blair, otherwise known as Tony Blair, the former Labour Prime Minister from, what was it, 1997 to 2008. He got kicked out, went on sabbatical or something. Okay. I'm not going to go into too much detail about whether he can be classed as guilty with regards to lying to Parliament and the nation and our major allies about the reasons about going to war in Iraq in 2003. What I'm going to talk about is let us create a virtual prime minister as an example about what we would actually do if we wanted to prosecute an individual like this. So I won't use Tony Blair's name, but read between the lines. Okay, so the accusations. The first thing we'll do is what crime are we accusing this person of? Most people seem to be accusing Blair of breaches of international criminal law, so war crimes. I think something like what's it called? Aggressive warfare. And then you've got other accusations which are more akin to domestic criminal law, which are things like treason, and also breaches of parliamentary procedure, such as contempt of parliament. And there's different schools of thought or different camps that say this warmongering prime minister should be taken to The Hague, where a lot of war criminals have been prosecuted, or should be taken to the Supreme Court and prosecuted there. There are problems with these. The least likely to function will be to prosecute this Prime Minister through the domestic courts, because the question is, what law did he actually breach? Specifically. Now you could cobble together some notion of deceiving people to instigate destruction of property and harm to persons. It's all too vague, unless the statute says, before he actually did this, mind you, the statutes generally cannot be retroactive, but we'll come back to that. Unless the statute said, it is a criminal offence if a person deceives the authorities into committing a military action. Upon conviction, that person will be liable to a prison offence, so no less than 5, or something like that. Unless you can find that on the statute books, that's enough vagary and wiggle room for a competent lawyer to make hay with. The other thing is it's political. Our legal system really isn't designed to go around prosecuting prime ministers. It's too political. It's too It's too dangerous for the courts. The courts historically do not like getting involved in political issues. They do, and they can, and they will. But generally speaking, they don't like it because it always turns out bad for them. They cause enough damage with the whole Brexit legal issues. This is black tea, by the way. So, the domestic courts are from The Hague, the International Criminal Court in... I should know where it is because I've been there. Not as a war criminal, I might add, as a mere observer. It's got this huge cube prison block where all the Serbian and African warlords are in there, scratching on the walls. I can't remember, but anyway, taking him there again. A prime minister from a major Western liberal democracy, I think, is too big a fish for them to fry. They were really designed to deal with little war-band war chief leaders, rebellious military generals, drug lords, things of that nature. they weren't designed to go after the leader of Her Majesty's government. Look, think about it. Since the Second World War, what's the biggest player that the International Criminal Court has processed? Former heads of third world countries in Eastern Europe. That's about it. They're really not designed to process that thing, and I don't think they'd want to do it. They're a small frying pan for small fish, to extend the metaphor. So that's a problem. There are actually two alternatives. One which I think is possibly the most extreme, may even be less viable than domestic court option. But it's one to think about. One option is to have this person prosecuted by the country that they screwed up. No, not the UK. The country that they had invaded based on lies. That's an interesting notion. Said country might take umbrage to the fact that this person deceived their own military and the military of their allies to destroy their homeland. They would certainly be motivated to prosecute this person, and they're the victims, the primary victims. So they could set up their own court system, and we could happily extradite this person into their waiting hands. Another thing, and I'm surprised this hasn't happened with regards to the example I cited at the beginning, is the countries that were deceived into this military operation by this person. Because they've been made a fool of, haven't they? They've lost life, limb, and treasure based on this person's lies. The relationship of trust they had has been completely violated. So they would have an interest in prosecuting this person. But still, it's unlikely. My view, and very few people have mentioned this, but my view is that the best way of prosecuting the major crimes of former prime ministers is to have them judged by their peers, namely the House of Commons. Believe it or not, the House of Commons actually has a judicial role. Its technical term is actually the High Court of the House of Commons. It historically can stand in judgment of its members, and it has. Most famous example being the prosecution of Charles I. Get my Charles right. The one who had his head cut off, okay? So Parliament does have a judicial function. So I think that the best thing to do would be to take him to that arena, because Parliament doesn't have any political constrictions upon it. It does what it likes. And the way it will be done by an instrument called a Bill of Attainder, which is an act of Parliament that names an individual or groups of individuals and ascribes certain punishments or sanctions against them as a part of some sort of judicial process. So an act of Parliament will be passed. This person will be summoned to Parliament. He will be able to make the prosecution would lay out its accusations. His representatives, give him a fair trial, can lay out the counter arguments. When the House has heard enough, all the MPs vote on whether they think he's guilty or not. And if they hold him to be guilty, there's a majority vote to hold him to be guilty. That doesn't activate. You could do it in that the vote is also the vote for passing legislation, but it would be easier to pass a law that requires Parliament to vote on it to activate the rest of it. So if he's found guilty, the law is activated, and because Parliament isn't bound by its successors, any punishment can be prescribed. So the death penalty can be brought back. If found guilty, the person accused will be sentenced to death in a expedient and humane manner. There we are. I would also put this provision cannot be compromised, undermined, or diluted via the application of the Human Rights Act or any other previous act of Parliament or common law rule of law, something like that, because they're almost certainly trying to appeal it. And you'll be taken away and executed, as I've said in a previous video, preferably by a firing squad. And yeah, that's that. So forget domestic courts, forget foreign courts. The highest court in the land is Parliament. It can create any law it likes over any subject it likes, and because of that, you can customize the trial and the punishment to what you believe is reasonable. So